What's up, guys? Happy Tuesday. Happy Election Day. If you're here in Pittsburgh, make sure you get out and vote. This is a big one. Chuck says, what's up, DK? What's up, Steelers Nation? Very cool. Jake Knudsen says, DK, I don't know if you're going to get a Christmas card from Mike Tomlin or Aaron Rodgers after this morning. This stuff doesn't matter. The idea here is to report and comment based on the reporting and do so in a professional manner and whatever else. But if anybody missed today's daily shot of Steelers, that's the podcast that I do every morning. It kind of didn't hold back on this whole issue. It's just so ridiculous, and it might be getting more ridiculous with each passing day because this is now becoming really, really clear that it's just a Tomlin thing. The more I hear from that side of the river over there, the more it's clear to me that this is coming from the head coach. This is not some universal thing. This is not we're all after Aaron Rodgers, or we all feel like we need Aaron Rodgers. There are people over there who are, I don't want to say satisfied. That sounds like they're accepting something. They want Mason Rudolph to be their starter because of their familiarity with him, because of everything else. Not because they think he's the greatest quarterback of all time, not because they think he's the future. They're looking at what their situation is right now, and they feel that way. You know, there's nothing else to it. The number of people that get agitated with this subject, and I mean agitated like to almost like politics level extremes, though, is starting to weird me out a little bit. And that's why I'm going to talk about the big split over there, okay? It's starting to feel like we're digging in for Aaron Rodgers, or this happens too, we're digging in for Mason Rudolph, or we're digging in for we're backing Tomlin, or we hate Tomlin, or whatever else here. And I think there's a health factor in a franchise fan base that is that heavily invested. And then there's also an unhealthy level to it. You know, think Toronto and the Maple Leafs, like that unhealthy. And you don't want that here. You don't want that here. Nobody wants what they have in Toronto with their hockey team. Nobody. It's diseased. And it actually hurts things. So what ends up happening, to get specific here, as it relates to the quarterbacks, these two quarterbacks, one of them is going to play, okay? One of them is going to be QB1. One of them. If it isn't Rodgers, it's going to be Mason. So whatever your thing is about Mason, you're not me. You're probably going to have to get over it. If it's the other way around, if they sign Rodgers, it's absolutely going to be Rodgers. No questions asked. Okay. That's what happens when you get somebody of that background. You're going to do that. You're going to get into a situation where you go, but I didn't want him. I didn't want him. Boo, fail, whatever. And then you're not going to want to do that either. Do you follow me on this? Like, from my standpoint, it's a little different. There's a good number of you, I think, that don't necessarily understand what it is that I do, because I occasionally get something from people that say, leave your opinion out of it, or leave your biases out of it. My actual role with this company is to give opinion. Now, I'm also a reporter. That's how it works with the columnist title. You do both. You're in there. You're talking to people. You're face-to-face, including with people that you're criticizing professionally, meaning you're criticizing the work that they do, their profession, or if they don't conduct themselves particularly well in a professional setting. You comment on that. It's a mix of reporting and opinion. So when you say to me, you're biased for Mason or whatever else, my response is my opinion, my stance as a columnist, as a commentator, is that Mason should be the quarterback. That's not bias. Bias would be like if he was my brother-in-law or something, you know? And that's not the case. He's not, at least to my knowledge, my brother-in-law. Well, that got a laugh out of her. He's not your brother, is he? No, Mason Rudolph is not my wife's brother.
Or your sister's husband.
Or sister's husband or whatever the heck. I don't even know how that works. Okay. That's what it would be, right? Brother-in-law would be sister's husband. Yeah, okay.
Your sister's husband or my brother.
Yeah, so anyway, it's not about, sitting there and just getting entrenched in something. Ultimately, my stance is based on what I feel would be best for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They, the head coach, don't have to feel that way either. Neither does anybody. But the more everyone gets ugly about this, like look at X here. You are lying. It's not just Tomlin wanting Rodgers. I've been the biggest Tomlin defender, but man, I'm not lying. Hey, this is stuff that I'm hearing over there. This is stuff that I'm hearing. Okay. If you don't want me to share stuff that I'm hearing, say the word. This show's going to get real boring in a big hurry. But when I share stuff like that with you, if you pay attention, you'll find out that the stuff ends up being valid. Okay. There is not some big, broader groundswell over there for Aaron Rodgers. There's one guy who really wants it. There's one guy who's been in communication with Rodgers, and it has not been the GM. It has been the head coach. You know how I know that? Rodgers has said that himself. XZ says, man, DK hates Rodgers. Wow. Of course, he's got a laughing emoji there. I don't even know him. Why would I hate him? Vicious Violet says Tomlin is acting like a fan, not a coach. He's done it before. And there are positives to when he does that. He's so into football players, football personalities, that it has benefited the Steelers in a lot of ways in his time. Justin Keenan asks, will people get over it if it's Rodgers? I can tell you that in Pittsburgh, it's going to take some getting over. I'm talking about the fans that are here. Okay. There is no sentiment in favor of Rodgers here. There seems to be some, among the far-flung fan base, the ones that are, either from here originally or just love the Steelers because they love the Steelers. But here, it's Mason or bust, to the best of my ability to gather that. Mike says there's no such thing as being unbiased. Well, certainly not in a columnist commentating role. It's not a matter of. I don't think people know what that word means, but they throw it around a lot. Bias means that there's something inherently in the mix that has you leaning toward that person. Like it's a family thing or whatever. It's just not. It's not. I know Mason. I've known him for a while. I've covered him for several years. There's really not much else to it. Then he says, you've also been studying this team for a long time. You know what they've done, what worked and what didn't. Well, I do know that Tomlin's never gotten a quarterback. He didn't get the one he had for all those years. Roethlisberger came with the package. He came with the deal. Tomlin's never brought in a quarterback who succeeded. The one time that one of them did, he dismissed it. And that was Rudolph with those 4 games. You can say there's just 4 games or whatever, but Jay Lavin says, why the Mason hate in the chat here? I've already said this. I think if you went and did a survey of who's from where, the sentiment out here, see that bus going back behind me back there? That's Pittsburgh. That's downtown Pittsburgh. Okay. The sentiment here is overwhelmingly in favor of Rudolph. But when we do this show, and I love having everybody here, don't get me wrong. When we do this show, we're reaching out to Steelers fans worldwide. I think that's the chasm here. That's the separation. Oh, Hex says, I just want to clarify. I don't think you were actually lying, just hoping. No, I'm definitely not lying about that. We're going to be joined here by Chris Halleck. I'm going on a little bit too long with this subject, but we'll continue tackling it. It's not like it's going to go away. All right, here comes Chris after this. Hello. Maybe not.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
Mark Cunningham with an appropriate finger wag as we welcome Chris to the show. Says, don't forget to hit the like as you're coming in. Did you hit the like, Chris? Do you want to face Mark's wrath?
If I possibly can hit the like, I will. I don't think I can from where I am.
Oh, yeah. No, you can't on this screen. No. I take that back. Jim Hogg, our longtime friend from Vermont, he says bias is not the same as opinion. Yeah, that's the part that people don't understand. I think Jim's wording it way better than I did. Bias means there's something inherent. He was what?
He was in here today.
Oh, she said Jim was in here today. Well, that's
nice.
Actually really cool. Oh, you know what? He told me he was coming for the Pirates series. That's right. Yeah, Jim, a long-time subscriber to DK Pittsburgh Sports, reader of ours here. Bias is when there's something inherently in there that should prevent you from commenting on a certain situation. You have a business attachment or something like that. Opinion is just an opinion.
Yeah. No, and the one thing that we have to do, and I have to be a lot more careful of it too with my role because I'm a beat reporter, and so I really am. My job is to report facts, is to report the actual happenings and news of the team. But I do try to do it through a lens in which I'm being as completely and contextually honest as I possibly can, so that people understand that information the best way possible. That is difficult to do sometimes, and you have to, and that's why the job is not for everybody. But it's difficult because sometimes when you make a point, like for example, I just wrote something on Arthur Smith and how we didn't really get a look at his true offense in year one, and so people will take that as me pounding the drum for Arthur Smith. I'm like, that's not what I'm doing. I'm not pounding the drum for anything. I'm trying to give you an objective as it possibly can be, look at an actual situation that's going on with the football team. And with this particular situation with Aaron Rodgers is we know Mike Tomlin wants Aaron Rodgers. That's been clear from day one. The question is, at what point do other people in the building start to get, like you said, a little tired of this charade? I don't necessarily think that everyone's just at this point being like, all right, that's it. We don't want him. Because I think, especially if somebody like Rooney were to put his foot down, it's not happening. They'd move on. Because the buck stops with the owner. It just
When does he do that?
Well,
when does he put the foot down on Tomlin? When has he done that in recent history? Be specific.
I will. Okay, I can give one.
I can give one too, and that's firing Bruce Arians.
I was going to say Matt Canada. Tomlin wanted to fire Matt Canada, and Rooney said no. And that didn't happen until midseason once the wheels really started to fall off. Like that season in between, that in between 22 and 23, Tomlin wanted to pull the plug then. And Rooney said no. And it wasn't until midseason when you don't have to pay to replace somebody because you can't hire somebody midseason. So you just promote interim guys, and then you can hire somebody after the contract's up anyway.
I don't get this one here. You can't be a truth journalist based on fact and merge it with opinion and not be accountable to statements made. That makes no sense. Again, Chris works the locker room. Chris is looking for news. Chris is trying to break stories. Chris is trying to get insight. Okay. He's going to work that insight into his analysis pieces, which can involve, by the way, an element of opinion. Like he'll say, this is a bad play or a good play. Okay. But it'll be based on data. It'll be based on precedent. All right. Yeah. I'm looking to gather information as much as I can, including, by the way, off the record. I do a lot more of that than most. Okay, where I'm just trying to learn stuff. I want to find out what's real.
Mm-hmm.
And even if I don't, and when I can't share that with you, meaning what was actually said, it'll inform the opinion that I have. Okay. So when you ask me, wow, is Pat Meyer a bad offensive line coach? And I can tell you with conviction that I've never heard a bad word about him. I don't know if you have, Chris. And there have been situations where the offensive line coach has been lousy, and we've heard all about it. Okay, and I can ideally inform that opinion. They actually very much are connected. As far as being accountable, I mean, what is this? We're right here every day. I don't know how much more accountable you want us to be. We can go stand in the middle of Market Square and get stoned. Not stoned. Stoned. Physically, like rocks thrown at us. Actually, I can't stand in the middle of Market Square right now because it's all under construction anyway. I think we've lost Chris over there. Paul Gracer says, shout out to Chris for a fantastic Chalk Talk article outlining Arthur Smith ahead of his second year leading the offense. Great stuff. You know what was not great stuff that you did, though, Chris?
What I do? Everybody
hated your 299 series.
I know.
Isn't that cool, though?
Yeah.
They were like, Chris, don't. And then you make it, you SOB, you made it a two-parter to shove it down their throats. Three parts to this. There's 100 yards per part.
Yeah, I'm
what an evil thing that was to do.
Well, I mean, people wanted it broken down. You wanted to see what happened. There we go. We're gonna look into every. I mean, I didn't even get through the entire game yet, but I'm done. I got through the fourth touchdown scored, which was the ugliest of them all. That was the 44 yards in which Derrick Henry literally sprinted away from the entire defense. That was the last call. For like, that's it. I like, as I was recording and I was like, maybe I'll finish this up. I'm done. I'm not, there's no reason to keep going through that.
Well, but the thing is you're not showing those things. There are people who are actually upset about it and actually wouldn't watch it, wouldn't read it, wouldn't do anything with it. How are you going to learn? No, I don't mean the Steelers. I'm talking about from somebody, the perspective of somebody who follows the team.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to know the difference when it gets good? And don't just say looking at the stats or Derrick Henry only ran for 70 yards instead of 900.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a way to better understand what it is that went wrong, to understand maybe the moves that were made, the emphasis on the defensive line
100%
that occurred, obviously, in the draft here. Hovain says, go look at the film. That's it.
Watch the tape.
That's it. That's how it goes.
And the great thing about being in the position that I'm at whenever I do this kind of stuff is while we have access to the players, I can literally not just go look at the film. I can then ask players for context on the play. What is your role here? What might have been the breakdown here? So that way, if I ever say on there, like for that game in particular, I can definitively say edge rushers kept crashing down on the running back because that's what they were coached to do. Because I had multiple players telling me that.
Players said this.
Yeah.
Through bitten lips, by the way. They were not happy with this scheme.
Right.
That's also part of reporting. See, now we're in the room. We hear this, so we can express an opinion on it.
Yeah. It's
all like, it all works together here. Rashawn Fletcher comes in with a $5 contribution and says, this is actually a really good question. I'm surprised this hasn't come up before. Will it be an indictment of Tomlin/Khan if Justin Fields has a great season, and he meant to say New Jersey, he says New York, especially if he beats the Steelers in week 1? I'm going to start this one, Chris, just because I was very strong in the statements that I was making about believing in Fields and wanting the Steelers to keep Fields and to at least give him an opportunity to be that guy. Okay. I don't take any of that back just because he left.
Yeah.
Just because he went through free agency. I believed all of that. I believe in Fields now. I don't believe in the other Jets. Okay. Now, what kind of team they put around him, I'm not responsible for that.
Yeah.
I feel like with the people that he had in Pittsburgh, if the line got better, now that you added DK Metcalf and everything else here, that you would have had something there for him in Pittsburgh. Would it be an indictment? I would say, in my view, Chris, it'll be an indictment if they were worried about the money, but yet give that same money to a 42-year-old.
Well, I do think that with Fields, the Fields-Rodgers thing is interesting because Rodgers is clearly a one-year situation. Fields was going to be multi-year. I mean, we're talking at least 2 years. And from what I understand, that's the type of contract they were willing to offer. So you are committing multiple years to Justin Fields almost as a bridge type, but with the upside to become something better. But the Rodgers thing gives you an opportunity that after 2025, it's clean slate and you're loaded with 12 draft picks and you're loaded to be able to go get your draft your quarterback in the future if you want to, if you feel like that guy's going to be there. As far as will it be an indictment if Fields succeeds with the Jets, the week one matchup, I honestly couldn't care less. I don't think that's an indictment whatsoever. Anything can happen in a football game in which one team wins over another. I mean, they could go into the game. The Steelers could lose literally half of their starters on one side of the ball due to injury, and then they don't stand a chance to win. Doesn't matter if Superman was their quarterback. Anything can happen in a football game. But if Fields goes and he turns into the franchise quarterback that he was initially drafted by the Bears to be, then yeah, that's going to sting a little bit because then you could always play the what if game. Well, would that have happened if the Steelers would have just re-signed him to a similar contract or to the same contract? But they clearly wanted Fields, but weren't willing to pay more than a certain number to have him be that guy for a year, 2 years, however long. And now they've got to make that. That's the bet that they made. They got to lay in it, and hopefully they won't be having to worry about it for their sake because they can possibly draft their franchise quarterback next year or the year after.
Dave Black asks, would Arthur Smith want Rodgers for his quarterback? Arthur's not going to. What do you think he's going to do? Say, no. Okay. My literal answer to your question is that I don't know. I've never brought the subject up with the man. I do know that he's comfortable with Mason as a quarterback. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's not saying that he's not with Rodgers. I'm going to repeat. I've never, ever brought the subject up with Art.
Yeah.
Okay. But where Rodgers is concerned, I'm sorry, where Mason is concerned, the subjects come up, and he values Mason, what he's done. He said he's always admired him from afar, and he likes the way, in particular, he brought this up, not me, the way that he holds the pocket. Mm-hmm. That's something that we've seen from Arthur Smith offenses in the past. We keep referencing Ryan Tannehill. You know, the real Tannehill's still out there somewhere, and he's 36. And I hear people say, he's washed. He's been out of football for a year. He has never ruled out coming back. In a recent interview, he said he could come back. Well, you can't have it both ways. You can't say that, you know, Rodgers at 42 is awesome and not at all washed, but, you know, Tannehill is.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
When it comes to, no, I haven't heard that Arthur Smith wants Rodgers or doesn't want Rodgers, but we can look at the context of the history there. Rodgers played for 4 years under Matt LaFleur with the Packers, and Matt LaFleur has had a big impact on who Arthur Smith is as an offensive coordinator. Remember, Matt LaFleur was the OC with the Titans the year before Arthur Smith was promoted, and Arthur Smith's offense just happens to be a really, really similar representation of the way Matt LaFleur coaches offense too.
Yes.
So will anything that Arthur Smith wants to do be foreign to Aaron Rodgers? No, absolutely not. This is stuff that Aaron Rodgers has executed before and can absolutely do, and did it at a very, very high level, because I would almost say that his 4 years under LaFleur, especially those first couple when he did win an MVP, almost kind of resurrected his career. It's kind of like the second wave of Aaron Rodgers, because we had this long, like, oh, Aaron Rodgers is dominant. He's top 3 quarterback in the league. And then he kind of started to kind of decline a little bit. And then LaFleur became the coach. And then he, oh, by the way, won an MVP in 2020. Like, so he kind of like did this little second jump in his career. So maybe if he's coaching under, or if he's playing under a similar type coach who coaches a similar offense, maybe he'll be better than he was with the Jets. maybe.
Pittsburgh fan 412 corrects me. He says it's dark Mason now. I don't know why you become dark just because you get a goatee. There's no dark. He doesn't come equipped with the dark gene at all. Actually, L.A. Brooks says, DK, do you think Mason has a slight advantage, being that he's been in the fold for a couple months now, building chemistry with the team other than Rodgers has? Doesn't matter. If the head coach wants the other guy, the head coach wants the other guy. If you think that's going to give Mason an advantage because he's here for off-season workouts, informal ones, OTAs, which are going to be open to the media, by the way, beginning, is it next Tuesday?
Tuesday, yeah.
Next Tuesday, yeah. We'll be over there covering that intensely, by the way, for DK Pittsburgh Sports, multiple reporters. And, I don't see Tomlin saying, yeah, but he's over there throwing medicine balls in May. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it maybe should be a factor, at least a little bit, but I don't think it is at all.
I don't think so. The one thing, you would have liked Aaron Rodgers to be here the moment that players could report for voluntary stuff. If he's there, if he signs this week and he's there for OTAs next week and he's there for OTAs for the 2 weeks and at minicamp, I don't think we're going to look back on this later on and be like, you know why Aaron Rodgers didn't work out with the Steelers? Because he signed in May instead of March. I think it'll be something completely else, something else entirely other than him signing later, because it's still early enough in the team development process in which he's not going to be like way behind. The playbook is still getting installed right now, by the way. Like, it's installed means taught. But
no, I understand. Yeah.
No, I'm talking. I'm talking for everybody else. Like,
there's a walkthrough process. That's a lot of what OTAs is. And we will see actual plays, by the way, in OTAs. You don't see them in rookie mini camp. There's not just going to be that's how. Yeah, right. Exactly.
I'm so excited, man. For real.
Here's a familiar one, Chris. Steelers media find a good balance to not lose their credentials with the organization. So I believe you guys got to find the balance and bite your tongue on speaking most of the truth. To your knowledge, and I've been around the Steelers since 1997. Okay, how many reporters have lost their credentials? Period. Never mind, lost them because they were critical of the organization.
That won't be something that gets you losing your credential.
I'm just saying, how many of has it actually happened to? Let's name a name. Has it happened to anybody?
Not that I'm aware of. Yeah,
right here.
Not that I'm aware of.
Zero.
Yeah.
And if you're a reporter watching this who says, "Hey, I lost my credential," feel free to pipe in. Okay, we'll put you on the screen because it'd be amusing to me since you don't exist.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's been some stuff. Okay, over the span of 20 some years, there's been some stuff where people deserved to lose their credentials over various incidents and behavior and unprofessional conduct and whatever else here. Never lost their credentials. Not once. Okay. I called for the head coach to be fired after this past season in really large letters, font. Okay. At the top of our site. In no uncertain terms, and I listed all the stuff that I felt he did wrong and has done wrong over the course of the years. Credentialed, okay? They don't have anything. This myth, and that's literally what it is the most insane thing. I have to get that one in. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's true, and the funny thing is that I can't say who says this because I'm not at liberty to say it, but some of the people over on the South Side who read the stuff that is written by anybody, whether it's by us or by any other reporters, literally makes them laugh, because sometimes whether it's just something that even if there's truth in it, they don't agree with it or whatever, like they don't take it that seriously. They really don't. Because from their perspective, they're like, they couldn't possibly know everything that we know on the inside. And so it doesn't really bother them that much. And if it does, something's usually said, but usually said, not credentials revoked.
It doesn't happen. Okay.
Yeah.
The only example I can think of in sports, like pro sports, where it's happened in the last 10 years is somebody from the New York Islanders suspended the credentials of 2 New York columnists because they were critical, whatever. And the entire sports/media world descended on the Islanders. Even people who don't care about the NHL or hockey or the Islanders or whatever went berserk because you can't do that. And instantly, like the very next day, the credentials were restored. So you can say these things and sound like the common radio talk show caller if you choose to, or you can just accept what are easily provable facts.
Yeah, the only time you're ever going to really get in trouble in terms of having your credentials revoked or being like suspended or anything like that is if you specifically do something that they tell you to not do. And what Chris means by that is if you violate a pre-established and pre-agreed upon terminology of how you conduct yourself professionally. It's not about your content. It's never, ever, ever, ever about the content that you produce. It's about how you carry yourself in their facility, in their world. Yep. Yeah. If there's a press conference that's about to happen and they say you cannot ask any questions about a specific subject because the press conference will end at that point and you go to ask that question anyway, not saying they're going to revoke your credential, but there will be a conversation that happens at least afterward. I mean, because sometimes certain press conferences are meant to be for certain things. And sometimes, like for a good example, this wasn't anything that was told to us, but when Arthur Smith first came into the room to answer questions about Caleb Johnson, he started fielding questions about the quarterback. He's like, I'm here to talk about Caleb. And sometimes that's just what they'll do too. Like they'll just, the person who's having the press conference just won't answer questions on certain things because that's what they're there to ask a question or answer questions about.
DV asks, what's a question that you've asked that got the most negative response from Tomlin? I'm going to let Chris go first, putting you on the spot, Chris. I have one, but it's a whole story.
Oh, man.
A question where you could just see that he just wished ill things upon you.
I'm trying to remember. Maybe I just haven't really rubbed him that badly before.
Yeah, he also will remember when you're the person who regularly asks the question who rubs him the wrong way. So he and I reached a point about 3 or 4 years ago where I could tell. Well, I asked him once just to test him, like the most innocuous possible thing. Essentially the question was, how awesome is TJ? Okay. Like after TJ had like 9 sacks in a game or something, right? And he just said, I would think that's obvious or something like that. Or he doesn't need any endorsement from me or one of those static and whatever. And he just was done and turned to look to somebody else because he'd really gotten tired of my crap. Okay. But the best negative response I ever got, there's a thing, Chris, you know this, there's a rule that's in the how the team and the media do business that says that Tomlin is available every day after practice upon request.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Not that I did this on purpose, but this was a few years ago. And I thought, you know what? Let's test this. I was in a mood, right?
Oh,
so
man.
I say to Bert Loughton, the media relations guru still to this day, I say, hey, Bert, I have a question for the coach. And he looks at me and goes, oh, come on. And I go, no, it's okay. Just it says here, upon request, I'm going to ask him. He goes, all right. So Coach comes off the field. Bert has a word with him. You can see away from me. Coach is like, he doesn't want to set the precedent, right? This is like one of those Wednesday or Thursdays, okay, which is not a day that he would normally speak, right? He gets a break from us. Says he's coming off the field. Goes like this, stands right in front of me. And I asked him a question about, this was at a time when Hines Ward was really not, this is Hines Ward's final season.
Mm-hmm.
And Hines just was not getting the football at all. And that's what I was going to write about that day. So the question was legit. Okay. And I just asked, what's it going to take for Hines to, get more involved in the offense? And he goes like this, true story, makes one step to his left and walks right past me. And as he's walking back to the room, he yells out, I tried, Bert. I tried. Didn't lose my credential or whatever other mythology exists out there.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really funny.
That's That's a lot of fun here. Were there any questions that you had to ask but wish you didn't have to? Yes, every single one of them related to Ryan Shazier that night in Cincinnati.
Oh God, I wasn't even thinking that.
Yeah,
I was
bang.
I was thinking more last year. I asked the question about George Pickens' eye black, the message he wrote.
Yeah,
I hate having to ask those questions, and I think the reason why I haven't gotten that kind of response from Tomlin yet is because I almost had a look on my face that was telling him, I really don't want to have to ask you this question, but I'm really holding back on not saying some words that will get us demonetized on here. But like, I really, really don't want to ask this question, but I have to get an answer on it. And so, yeah, I asked it, but I almost asked it. If I would have had the eye rolling emoji over my face as I was asking it, that's pretty much what it was.
Yeah, and it's
that question.
It's a lot like if you go back over a couple of years ago when there was word out there that Tomlin was some candidate for a college opening, and there is no way to ask that question without it being insulting. I think it was our mutual friend Tim Benz.
Yeah.
Who ended up asking it. There's nothing wrong with the question.
No, there's nothing wrong with the question.
Okay?
Had to be asked.
And Tim, who spent some time at our company in the past, is better than most at asking his questions. And Tim just asked that. And Tomlin seized upon the opportunity to go at the questioner. And would you ask that of Andy Reid? Mm-hmm. Which there's a lot of implications in the way Tomlin answered that. Okay. Just calling it like it is. There's a lot of implications by saying, would you ask that of the Caucasian head coach as opposed to the African-American head coach? Mm-hmm. Okay, because Andy and I have both been at this for a long while. Why am I the one who would be interested in regressing to college or minor league football when I have succeeded in the NFL and I'm here? So there's a lot of different ways that you can look at that, but those things come up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the questions, even whenever this past time that Tomlin spoke at the end of rookie minicamp, somebody had to ask about the George Pickens trade, even though we had just talked with Omar Khan, a week before, or no, a couple days before, about the. I mean, we had already heard from the GM, but this is the first time Tomlin speaking. Yep. It has to be asked. And so I actually opened my mouth to begin to ask the question. Another reporter started asking it. I'm like, and after we were done, I was like, if you didn't ask it, I was going to, because like, it has to be asked. Yeah.
Austin says reporters are scared to criticize him at all.
Oh,
Austin, I'm right here, dude. I called publicly for him to be fired. He's going to end up in the Hall of Fame someday. He's won a Super Bowl. Okay, I called for him to be fired. There is not a stronger criticism stance that you can take, and it's not one that you take lightly. It's not one that you take for, clicks or attention or anything. You've got to really believe it. Okay, I'm not saying it. Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
No, I think what people like Austin want is they want us to criticize Tomlin to his face in press conferences. I think that's what they want.
Yeah, but that's not what press conferences are. They're there to answer questions about the football team, and you're there to ask them. You're not representing angry fans. You don't come in there and go, and what about your clock management? You suck. Seriously. I mean, it's just not how it goes.
That's
okay. We'll ask about the clock management. That comes up every single time.
Yep.
Okay. But we're not angry fans. We don't represent fans. I have people every once in a while. This bothers me just as much when someone will say, thanks for asking the questions for us that we would ask. No. We're asking questions that are relative to the content that we're creating. We need information. We need to hear his stance on things so that we can better explain to you, A, what he was thinking, and B, what we're thinking about what he was thinking. And Chris is right about that. Reporters. Tim's saying reporters aren't fans. So that's another one. Nobody buys. Nobody believes that.
Well, nobody buys. Nobody believes it because, like, for example, you'll see Steelers memorabilia behind me. Just because I have like friends and family who are Steelers fans doesn't make me a Steelers fan. I can't be a fan of the team that I'm covering, because then when you talk about crossing the line between bias and unbiased, And I have actually talked with reporters who have been fans of teams like growing up. That was the team they cheered for. And then they became a reporter covering that team. They said, actually, it's not as hard as you think it is to take the fan hat off, because once you see how the sausage
gone,
is made,
man.
it's
Mike
gone.
says criticism to his face is how you lose your credentials. He says it with a smiley face. You want to know something, though? Mike is right. Because if you go in there and you conduct yourself unprofessionally, you're going to lose your credentials. And at our company, you know how you're going to do that? Because you're not going to be working here anymore. Okay. Yeah. That's how it goes. And that would apply to any of the local newspapers or anywhere else. I have a lifetime in this business. The people who carry themselves unprofessionally, unbefitting a journalist, they won't do that job anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. That's how it works. That's not unique to us in any capacity. Okay. We've had a couple of situations here at our company where we had to let people go because they just, what are you doing? You're cheering? What the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Do you not understand what this business is?
Paul says Sports Journalism 101, no cheering in the press box. That is true. And they actually say before every game that this is a working press box. There's no cheering, no booing or anything like that. It's so funny because every now and then, and it's happened now twice in the same city that I've been to. I don't even know if I want to say which city it is, but it's happened twice. Both times I've been to this city to cover a game, I have heard cheering in the press box for the home team. Both times.
Yeah, but that's because they're letting the wrong people in. And that's where this gets confusing to some. James Fairfield says, are you saying Myron Cope wasn't a fan? My legit friend, Myron, was working for the team. Myron was a color commentator on the team broadcasts. The people that you hear on broadcasts are not media. They're not beat writers. They're not reporters. They're not that. Okay. Yeah. They're paid by the team.
Yep.
But these things get conflated all the time. People get on the Pirates broadcasters more than anybody else. Why? Because the Pirates stink. And because they're the ones that are going on TV and saying, hey, look at so-and-so random AAA call-up has one hit in his last 17 at-bats. And wasn't that hit awesome? And you're going, what the heck? But they work for the team.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a totally different dynamic. That's not journalism in any capacity.
No. That's not saying that those people don't have valuable roles or special roles. They just have different roles.
Yeah. Was Myron a fan? Of course he was. Myron had a special role. Okay. Myron was working for the team and everything else, but would Myron also criticize? Myron had a special role with the team. So the answer to that is yes.
Yeah.
DV says, yeah, but I'll bet Mark Scheifele got some cheers when he scored the other night. In the press box?
Not in the press box.
No.
Not in the press box.
If my good friend Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press heard this right now, he would explode on you. Yeah. No. I mean, you hear this
like
is the part of this is going to start getting to me here. Danny, you don't cheer?
I get excited about like football, like nerdy football stuff in the press box, but I don't cheer. Like if I see I remember the first time George Pickens made an insane catch when fans would normally be cheering. I literally just sat there and be like, did he catch the football? Did he actually catch the football? And then
Frank says, do credentials get turned in if a reporter loses them by getting fired? Yeah, of course. I mean, the credentials go through the outlet. Okay, Chris and everybody, all of our reporters at DK Pittsburgh Sports are credentialed through DK Pittsburgh Sports because DK Pittsburgh Sports is a company. You can't just walk in off the street and say, credential.
Yeah.
Mike says, you have to have some element of fandom to want to spend that much time with the teams that are right. No.
So it's not the job. The job is not, it's not being,
you have to love the job.
Yeah. Because you learn, I'm telling you, like once you learn how the sausage is made, before I became a sports journalist, because I became a sports journalist later in my life, I was a big time sports fan. Still am a big time sports fan. I cheer for Chelsea every single time they take the pitch, every single time. But if once you find out how the sausage is made behind sports teams, it's just different. You look at the entire sports world through a completely different lens. I don't ever consider myself to be the same type of sports fan that I was before I became a journalist, because now you look at everything through the entire journalism worldview at that point.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's just, yeah, everything, goes. Now, John says, has there ever been a holy S moment in moments in the press box? I don't know if you mean like when we see a great play, like you don't cheer, but you will go, whoa, the heck was that? I mean, we're human. Okay.
Yeah.
But there's no cheering. And it's not something that you stifle either. It's not, we're holding it in. Like Steele in Utah says, do you make no sound? It's like, we're not, and my wife is laughing here because she's been, she's aware of the whole career. This isn't something that even passes through your head. Yeah. I've covered championships, it just, you can be inwardly happy for the city, happy for some of the individuals. You can even get emotional for some of the individuals. Okay. We're not robots here. Okay. But believe me, if the Penguins had lost to the Sharks in 2016, or they'd lost to the Predators in 2017, all that's going through my head is I've got a job. I got so many stories to produce. I've got so much stuff to do. And you don't have time for any of the rest.
Yeah, you don't have time to sit there. I mean, I'm telling you, like the sometimes, like, I guess from a fan's perspective, when the game is over, like fans are they have time to either like sit there in their happiness, or like cheer in their happiness, or maybe just wallow in their anger or whatever it is. That's when our real work is getting started. Like that's
No.
This is funny. This is a fun episode.
This is actually a good question here from That's Bayad. Says, what are the differences in covering a bad team compared to covering a good team? Now, we haven't had much good of anything in Pittsburgh in a while. Okay, out of the three teams. But I just spent a weekend in Philadelphia with the Pirates getting swept by the Phillies and not doing so in impressive fashion. Okay. And your mindset never changes. You're in there looking for what's the most compelling material. Whatever that happens to be, including if it's negative and whatever. I'm in there talking to people about the new manager and talking to them about Don Kelly. I'm talking about how Paul Skeens reacted to being brilliant and not getting a result on Sunday. Okay. You're doing the same things. The only difference, and Chris can back me on this, is that when times are good, you'll get better material from the people you're interviewing because they're going to be more chatty. They're going to be more talkative. Otherwise, no difference.
Yeah. I think the only part of it, I think that makes it hard when you're covering a bad team is if you are an enjoyer of the game that you're covering and you're watching a really bad version of it, that becomes hard to watch after a while. And then at that point, you just have to start tuning out. Okay, well, what's going on the field almost doesn't matter. Now I just have to worry about reporting and relaying all of the information that I possibly can to the people that really want to consume it. And so that's what you have to do. I've covered 102 loss Rangers team. And yeah, by the time mid-June hit, those players were not as chatty. And that was right when, by the way, we were starting to like reporters were getting back on the field to talk to players. We weren't back in clubhouses yet, but we were getting back on the field to talk to players face to face, and they didn't want to talk because they were bad. Like they were a bad baseball team. And I was just like, this is like, I'm finally getting my training wheels taken off or getting my handcuffs taken off because I'm having to do everything via Zoom. Now I can try to find one-on-ones and nobody wants to talk because they're bad.
Danny Blaze says he still can't get through this. So win or lose, you don't feel good or bad about the game. He's still trying. This is great. Okay. Here's what we feel good or bad about. Okay. I don't want to speak for Chris. Okay. But I know that he's in this profession, so I know his answer as well. Okay. When you leave the stadium or the facility, what you are feeling good or bad about is whatever it is that you've produced. Okay. If you feel like you have produced the best possible column with the most insight, maybe even a little bit of like a one-on-one interview with somebody where they really had a great quote, but you worked it, okay, and you developed a relationship with that player, and you found out something about the key play of the game that no one else is going to have, that kind of detail, dude, we are sky freaking high.
Yep.
Driving out of that facility. Okay. Sky high. We wouldn't even know who won or lost that game.
Yeah, I do remember I think it was the game against the Giants when Calvin Austin caught the touchdown in that game on the corner route, and I got the exact breakdown of that play because one of the things that I typically do after a game is a chalk talk that breaks down either a play or a series or whatever from the game, and I get exactly the exact nuts and bolts that went into that play call and the play design and everything. That's all I thought about from the time that I got that information to the time that it got published. And then even after that, I'm going back to the comments to see how people are reacting to it, because I want to know that the hard work that I put in, that people are enjoying it or at least understanding what went into it, so that they better understand what happened with the team, again, that they cheer for. They're consuming the content.
Sir Hawk, binary question. Do you prefer that they win? It depends on the circumstance, my man. You know, it's all about the content. It's not even real. I don't know how else to put this. It's not even, really a thought. Let's take a couple here. Oh God, they're all still coming in like, really? Wow. David wants to know, what teams are you guys fans of? I got to tell you, the only time that I'm openly rooting for anything, okay, this happened on Sunday. I root for the team that is playing the Toronto Maple Leafs in any circumstance. It's the worst fan base, the ugliest fan base. And now that got exposed to the whole world over the weekend with the way they conducted themselves up there. Okay, before, during, and after Game 7, they embarrassed themselves in the city in so many ways that are incalculable. And players shouldn't even want to play there anymore. You have the opposing team publicly, the Florida Panthers, were saying, they lost because of their city. They lost because of their fans. They have all this talent here. They put too much pressure on them. They're onerous. They're evil, whatever else, right? I enjoy watching the Maple Leafs lose. Chris can attest to this. He will see me get demonstrative about this. And that's pretty much it. I don't sit there and watch sports like everybody else does. I'm pretty much just quiet,
Yeah. I became a Chelsea fan like back in 2017, 2018. And that's just because I enjoy the game of soccer so much that I felt like in order to really get fully invested in it, I just needed to choose a club that I was going to watch all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I chose Chelsea because of Eden Hazard, because I really love the way Eden Hazard played. And that's the reason why. But it's not like I'm I'm a sports fan of that team through the perspective of also being a sports journalist. I'm not the fan the way that people think you're a fan. I'm not it's
Timothy says, DK, you follow the Winnipeg Jets. I am a big fan of the city of Winnipeg for reasons that I have laid out in a very detailed column that you can find at dkps.net/Winnipeg. It's a rather lengthy story about an experience that I had there many years ago and why I love the place. It's not about the team. In fact, what happened really had very little to do with the team. So anyway, let's do this. End on an actual football note here. Hayden Daddy wants to know, do you foresee any other major moves coming before camp, excluding the QB drama queen, maybe making an entrance here? Chris, I can't help but think of WR2.
Yeah.
I also don't think that, I don't think there's anything really that conspicuous that's left out there, just depth.
There are no other major holes on the roster that need to be addressed, obviously, other than adding a fourth quarterback, which most likely will be Aaron Rodgers if and when he decides to come to Pittsburgh. But yeah, the second wide receiver that can play opposite DK Metcalf on the most consistent basis is the only real hole left now after they traded George Pickens. And again, it may be May 20th, May 20th right now. We got 2 weeks of OTAs that haven't even began yet. We've got mini camp that's still 3 weeks away, I think, 3 or 4 weeks away. It's a while, man. It's still early. There's still post June 1 moves that could be made. There are still a lot of ways that they can address that. And I don't expect it to be some major move. I don't expect some sort of gigantic, wow, they've got 2 number 1 receivers again. I don't expect it to be a move like that. I expect it to be a guy that can complement DK Metcalf more, kind of the way Corey Davis complimented AJ Brown in Tennessee, for example.
Aaron Breeze, last word for the day. Yeah, but are you guys fans? We will see everyone, Chris and I, tomorrow. Oh, no. What an episode. Snowman comes in with a late contribution, says, when will the Steelers sign Derek Carr? It doesn't matter. You know that. There's a cap for that. Those days are gone where there was drama about first round picks and all that other stuff here. Maxwell Cole seemed to enjoy the episode. It seems like we picked up a lot of vibes about people not knowing what it is that we do for a living. There's a lot of fair questions to be asked about that. We're kind of like lawyers. Nobody understands what the hell we do. You know, if you think of it from the standpoint of lawyers, and one of our mutual friends is a lawyer, they take on cases for some really disgusting humans. Okay. Some of the society's worst, ugliest people. Okay. They do it because there's a system in place, and what they value is the system. So if you take on like I'm going to get gross on you here, but like some rando child molester or whatever else here. Okay. You have to defend that son of a bitch with every fiber of your being, because you're protecting the law. You're protecting the rule of law. You're protecting the way the system works. That's what lawyers sign up for. It doesn't mean that they believe in him or that they're a fan of him or whatever. Now, maybe not the best example to equate the whole, child molester thing with being a fan of the team. Okay. But you kind of get the idea here. When I word it in a different way, one thing that I know for a fact is if I say to you, what about political reporters? If you're covering a campaign, should you be standing out in the crowd holding up a campaign sign? Vote for so-and-so. If you're covering the campaign, like after that, you put the sign down and then you go and interview the candidate? No. See, that part makes sense to people. But as soon as you say it about sports, it's like, yeah, but how do you suppress it? How do you hold it in? It's not hard, like at all. David Harrison says, if you were hired by the team, would you let the fan out? I mean, I can answer that on behalf of someone who was with us here for 5 years, a great reporter in Dale Lawley. Dale's been with the Steelers now for a couple of years. Nothing changed about Dale. Okay. Dale is just Dale. And for that, I'm bringing in Chris. I'm bringing Chris back. I have to do this. Okay. Because he is our mutual great friend. We love him to death. If you ask Dale right now, working for the Steelers, is he a fan or is he just doing the job that they're paying him to, which is to write quality articles on the team? Which one is it?
He's doing his job. He's writing articles on the team, and he also does a lot of the SNR stuff. He's doing the drive every day, and with our also mutual friend Matt Williamson, who obviously does a lot of work for us. And so Dale is one of the guys who helped influence me, not just because he worked for the company when I first started working for the company, but because once you see the way he goes about his job, I'm like, I want to learn from that guy. I want to learn the way he does things. I want to
tell everybody the truth here. I mean, you've learned a lot from Dale. Dale's been your guy.
Dale's
in a lot of ways there. Michael Barnett says, if only music journalists behave the way as sports journalists. This is actually a valid thing to bring up, because if you're a concert reviewer and you go to the concert and you're jumping up and down and singing along, and do you still hold the lighter up? Is that illegal now? You hold the lighter up, peace signs, whatever else, and you do that, and then you sit down and say, that concert sucked. You know? Yeah. What is that? Let's thank everybody here. We can get an opportunity here. Eric came through with 5 gifts for us. Russell did likewise. Appreciate both of you. Well, I'm going to throw Jeffrey in there too. We appreciate you, and we appreciate Rashawn Fletcher. $5 seemed to be the figure for the day here. Chris's best friend Butthole came in with $3 total.
The real one.
Yeah, right. Not the Butthole. There's somebody coming in like the Butthole trying to feast off Butthole's good name.
He's got some of the words you have chosen in this episode, man, have been.
Yeah, there's been some pretty colorful language, as they're not.
Not even just that. I just completely.
I didn't cross the line though.
When you talked about getting stoned in Market Square, that was it for me. I was done.
That meant stoned. Okay.
No.
Well, Lang says even with so many draft picks in the middle rounds, I imagine trading 10 or so picks up in the first involves next year's first, not just yes, it's a high price. The Browns just made sure of that for everybody. Okay, with the ridiculous haul they just got from the Jaguars in this past draft here.
100%.
Charlo accuses us of being fans only of the possibility that Roman Wilson will score a touchdown someday. Kerry always comes in with one, Snowman with a couple, and Danny Blay, who I think we finally sold on the idea that we do this for a living, gifted 10 gifts. We love you guys. Really cool episode. I hope, even if you don't believe us, I hope we shed some light on what the process is. So we will in fact do this again tomorrow.